All right, so I do get some questions every once in a while about how do I bid, how do I handle large projects. So we are on one of my larger projects. We'll go over it. This is basically, actually there's two projects here, but this is basically a garage with a mother-in-law suite above it with an additional 350 square foot concrete pad poured up next to the, I don't know if you guys can see back there, but we'll go up there, poured next to the pool. And then we're still waiting for permits. Should have them for today or tomorrow, but since we were delayed, customers wanted a bathroom inside their house, so we actually, from scratch, just built a bathroom, and those permits were approved, and we're pretty much wrapping that one up pretty soon, within a week or so. So let's get through it. All right, so we are finishing this 1,600 square foot basement from start to finish. Full disclosure, this is my basement. New workstation, we'll get into that in another video. I think it should be popping up probably next month. But bathroom, bar area on this side, and then I'll show you guys later on down the road what the rest of the plan is for the rest of the basement. But the main thing is with this is it's a larger project. I mean, my cost is going to be definitely, it's already well into the 5 figures, and that's with me doing all the work. So let's get into how I manage larger projects, my tips and tricks, and the mistakes I've made. All right, so my large project when I first started out as a handyman was basically a bunch of TVs, a bunch of cable lines ran, surround sound for a bar that wasn't too local to me. And it ended up being just over 5 figures and over $10,000, which was the biggest job I've done to the day, which was great because at that time, that was my first winter in business. And that got me through, you know, the December to January. It was a lot of work. Looking back on it, probably should have charged probably 20 grand. But yeah, that was my biggest one. And I didn't make, you know, too many mistakes on that one because it was all like within my wheelhouse as far as work that I knew how to do really confidently. So it was just time consuming. I think I employed a couple extra hands, but at the same time, just pulling thousands of feet of coax and Cat 6 and all that, or Cat 5. I don't think Cat 6 was out by then. And yeah, it was a lot of work. And at the end of it, everything worked out great, and you know, got paid. But the same thing goes for nowadays. Now I have jobs that are well over that, and the main thing with the larger projects is obviously more money, you know, more problems, bigger projects. I just divvy them you make the big project, the end result, but you got to obviously start from the ground up. So if you're doing, like, say, an addition, a kitchen, a bathroom, you got to bring it down to where you bring it down to the studs. So demo work, or, you know, you got construction, you got concrete work. So break it up into just your normal levels of what you need to do. Smaller jobs. Break everything into smaller jobs. Either you're not doing the job, so you're going to sub it out, or if you're going to do the job, you can just make a list of them. Everything that goes, you know, from starting the project to the finish, just make a complete list of what needs to be done. And for the first couple times, it's probably going to be very, very time consuming for you to do this. I know for me it was. I had like a little Excel spreadsheet, and I still have, I think, something like that that I've been using for materials lists and everything that my wife made me. But you start out, obviously, say, I'll throw some B-roll in here. This is a mother-in-law suite we're building in the garage. And obviously, you're going to have to start with the foundation. So we demoed, took out all the concrete from the old driveway, you know, dug out for the footings, all that kind of stuff. We're not there yet. This property actually already has footings, so it kind of saved us some time for sure. But you got to start from the ground and go up from there. The first thing you want to do is obviously have insurance, your proper licensing, or hire the person who has the license for you. And then the money. You got to have money. You got to have the funds. And I would highly recommend you not financing your customers' work. Build their project with their money and structure your contract with their money. So they pay you, then you go do something. They pay you, then you go buy something. They pay you, then you go do something. Now, you're going to have to front labor. I always front some labor because it's a give and take kind of thing. But especially in Michigan, when materials are on the job site, they are actually the homeowners, the landowner's property. So you want, because you can't really, if they try to stiff you, you can't go in there and just repossess. Like, different states are different laws, but it's not your money anymore, or it's not your materials anymore. So you gotta know the laws. That's where your contract comes in, and then stipulate all the stipulations, and then have a clear, very clear scope of work. So what is and what is not included, and that's why larger projects. That's why I charge. There's so much you got to down to the how many coats of paint, the brand of paint, because I am not going to be putting Glidden paint on anything, because you could put 5 coats of that crap and it still looks like it's 1 coat. So yeah, that's where people are like, oh, it's 2 coats of this and 1 coat of primer. So you do it, and then like, oh, it looks pretty thin. That's 2 coats. If you want a 3rd coat, there's an additional change order, and it goes in. I don't really want to nickel and dime homeowners, but at the same time, you got to keep them in check, especially with my customers now. They kind of came to me saying, hey, this was not included, and I explained to them, and it goes with communication, that hey, it says in our contract and everything, permits process. I'm not a licensed HVAC electrician and plumber, so when they come to me with those bills for the actual permits, then I have to pass that cost along to you, which is it's included in my contract, but they either forget or skipped over that part when we're going over the contract. So you do have to have clear and concise communication, and I try to have communication with my main project customers once a day at least, if they're not on site, or I'll see them on site, obviously, when we're working or doing whatever we need to do. So next thing would obviously be permits. Make sure you have all your permits in line. Everything you can do demo in my state. You can do demo work without permits. So that's what we're doing right now, and once we need the permit so we can get the footings inspected, and then we can start building stuff, right? Pouring concrete and building things. So once you have permits, then they'll have a foundation inspection. You've got your pour inspection, depending on obviously what your township or your building department dictates, but they'll have a list of what they want to inspect. Obviously, insulation, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, framing inspections. That's depends on what you have, right? So post hole inspection if you're doing a deck, stuff like that. So you want to break it down based off that as well, and then you just build yourself, build up from there. So once you have your concrete, you just go to your next step. And if you don't know, then either hire someone who does know, or do the research, do the work on your own, and find out. You have to look at the code book, go ask the building inspector, go do some, take some humble pie and go ask somebody for help, because if you don't know, at least you know that you don't know, right? So that would be my main thing with large projects. Break everything down into a bunch of small projects and just knock them out one at a time. And then pretty soon that large project will be not as large, and it'll be pretty small once you're getting towards the final end. And the main thing is nothing happens, with business, nothing happens without money. Make sure you schedule your payments accordingly. I would never do like a half down and half at the end for anything large, because your customer I want the money in my bank account. I don't want it in my customer's bank account, because I use it, I need it, and it's nice to have, right? So I don't want them holding a huge amount of money over my head for punch list work. And also in the contract, punch list work is not something that contract, it's going to be stipulated. They can't hold final payment for that. And my final payments are usually after we get the certificate of occupancy or final inspection for whatever we're doing. That's when final payments due. And if they have any concerns after that, we can address them, which we always do, but they're going to pay us. So keep that in mind. As far as bigger projects are concerned, that is basically how I do it, guys. Material, make sure you have materials. Nowadays, this is we're going April, going into May of 2022. Make sure most of these projects, I have all materials on the site before we start. If it's a larger project, obviously it's not possible. The smaller projects, we can. If it's flooring, if it's a kitchen, make sure everything's on site, inspected, boom, or at least somewhere where you can just easily truck it to the job site. Make sure everything's that way. We have no material delays, because those take a while. Like right now, windows are like 6 to 8 weeks. Sometimes they were like 6 months out. So it's crazy. That's as far as big projects, guys. That's what I have for you. Now, obviously, the money wise, you got to keep track of the money. So everything needs to be documented. If there's money changing hands, send an invoice, paid in full. Every time there's a change order, sign it. And then in our end, change orders are always paid in full. With one, my customer wanted to add 22 square feet to the entire project, so I had a square foot price, just times it by 22. That's my change order. And then they wanted a bigger square footage inside. So that's where we're at with the money wise for big projects. You want to make sure you're on top of it and you're always ahead of it. You never want to be behind. It's okay, have everything paid off. Make sure your subs are paid off and then you take, as you're the GC of the job or the builder or whatever you want to call yourself, the contractor, you're going to take your money at the end and make sure everybody else is paid, because you want those lien waivers, you want all that stuff right up front, so you can show, you know, either the bank, the homeowner, whoever, that you paid everybody in full, everything's done, and then you can collect your, you know, your final payment. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to get paid throughout, because you should absolutely stipulate getting more money up front than on the back end. I'm just saying, make sure everybody's paid, because you can get yourself into a lot of trouble. I've, you know, gotten behind on some stuff, and I had to rob Peter to pay Paul on back jobs, and I learned my lesson from that. It's not fun, but nothing is going to kill your reputation more like not paying your subcontractors or not paying somebody else who's working with you. So I think that's about it for large projects, guys. These they're fun. There's a lot of great things about large projects, but they can be time consuming. You can lose your butt on them because of lost productivity, spending too much time, and not charging the right rate. And then there's great things about being, you know, doing small projects. You're in and out. You got your set amount. Smaller things. That's why we still do smaller projects, because it's nice having that quick, relatively quick money. You're done. It's cut and dry. There's no nitpicking. That is also nice. So I would highly recommend doing that. Don't grow as a business unless you absolutely can't afford not to. So I did that last year, the year before. Kind of bit me in the butt. So now here we are doing all subcontractor work, and it's been working out pretty good. So like and subscribe, you guys. I'll see you in the next video. I appreciate it.